John Cohn is an IBM Fellow, the most senior technical rank at the behemoth company. Other labels like Genius or IBM's own Einstein and Mad Scientist have also been used for Cohn. He might prefer Nerd. He's my guest next on Connect. John Cohn is an MIT electrical engineer with a Carnegie Mellon PhD. He has over 65 patents in design automation, methodology, and circuits. He rose to the top brain ranks of IBM, but more significantly, he is an evangelist for the wonder, coolness, potential, and fun that science can offer everyone, right?
And I'm glad to be here, Fran.
Well, you know, and you also actually, interesting enough, talk about fellow. You're also a fellow of IEE, the world's largest association
of nerds.
Of nerds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Association of Technology. So when did you decide you want to be an engineer?
Do you know, it's funny. My mom was cleaning out her house a couple of years ago, and she found something when I was 8 that said I wanted to be an engineer and that I wanted to go to MIT. And I was like, how did I know what MIT was? But that's the first documented. But I think when I was 4, I knew that I wanted to be a nerd. You're born into it.
Right,
know?
Pretty directed. Were your parents scientists, or?
No, but they tolerated science very well. My dad was a marketing guy, and my mom, mid-career, became a lawyer.
Wow, wow, cool. So you just very recently gave up your office space at the former IBM. That must have been hard. It's now Global Foundries, but you still work with IBM.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do now as a fellow? What does that job entail?
I work in a new area. It was really interesting, kind of, you know, end part of my career deciding, you know, what I wanted to do next. We just launched a new business in Internet of Things. It's, you know, connecting everyday things, cars, medical devices, appliances to the internet. We were launching that business, and I became like one of the chief scientists. I've been told I'm Yoda for the new Internet of Things.
There's another name for you.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yes. And it was just too much fun to let go, so I just started this. It's about 80 hours a week of fun.
Wow. It involves a lot of traveling.
It does lots.
So the Internet of Things, just not everybody really understands that. Okay, it's your computer talking to something, but it's a lot more than that. It's like everything connected in a way.
It's more like things, you know, like everyday objects. Take a car, okay, you're driving around and, you know, there's a little light there that says check engine. Well, that's not very helpful. More and more, you know, high-end cars now have this, and by 2019, 2018, most cars will. It'll be able to phone home back to the computer, say that the car manufacturer has, and said, you know, instead of just having an exclamation light, it'll know exactly what's the matter. It'll signal you, maybe through email. It'll tell you, you know, do you need to service this right now, or we can handle this in 6 months. It'll schedule the service. The parts will be there, and you'll get to learn about all those cars so that they can be designed a little bit better. So you don't have to wait several years to figure out, you know, do we have to make an adjustment.
So it's good for the company. What is this? Privacy seems to be. I mean, this is exciting, but what about our privacy?
Went right to the right point. I'm a huge advocate for privacy. We have to be very careful. I think there are ways of doing that in a way that completely preserves privacy. I think as consumers, though, we have to be strong advocates that any data that we're giving away, we know we're giving away, and we're getting something good for it. So I'm working in a lot of areas technically on how do you preserve that privacy. But I think, you know, being aware about that. But I think it can do so much good in the world that we can't let that sort of fear stop us, but we also need to be vigilant. It's a really good point.
A balance. So just before we move on, your thoughts about Global Foundry. You're staying with IBM, but is Essex, the plant, in good hands?
Oh, it really is. I was just giving a talk there last Friday, and it really felt good. You know, I was giving a talk for a global audience, and I expected a bunch of new people, and they all came in, and they were my old friends. The mood there's good. You know, it's a tough business to be in. It's very thin margins and very competitive. But what's great, and I know this because I'm working with Global at a very senior level, that plant is at the center of what they want to do. You know, we were talking about Internet of Things. That is a central play for them. And so this plant over here makes these kind of wireless chips that are in everyday objects. And more chips from
Which is
this
what you
plant.
used to do in design,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
And that's why this is such a great opportunity for me. But the people over here are at the center of what Global wants to do. You know, they have their worldwide company, and I predict, you know, this is just an outside observer, but I predict they're going to be in really good hands for the next couple of years as this trend builds.
Cool. So when you're not traveling and doing who knows what and think tanking as a fellow,
Then I'm sleeping, but not much of that.
you're often found at the generator space, and you created Vermont's first makerspace, the Fab Lab up at UVM, where you're an adjunct professor, I think, possibly
Right.
still. What do you love most about being there?
Oh, I love the whole maker movement is, you know, kind of taking this nerdism and sort of broadening it. So you don't have to be an engineer. You can be anybody. You can be an artist. You could be a technician. You could be a poet, and still figure out how to use technology to help tell your story. And we first started the Fab Lab at UVM for the students at UVM. Well, we were still trying to figure out a way to bring in, you know, more bigger community. And Vermont has such a vibrant, you know, kind of Yankee ingenuity thing going on, you know, the art hop, et cetera. So a bunch of us got together and we started Generator. And if you don't know Generator, it's the first floor of Memorial Auditorium. But what I love about it, in Burlington, what I love about that place is being able to see just that mix. You know, if you go in there, I usually go in there on Monday night. I jokingly say if I'm in the country, I'm there on Monday nights. And you know, any Monday night you'll find electrical engineers, woodworkers, artists, you know, people who, you know, defy labeling, and they're all working together. There's just so much, you know, it's all that creative energy and sort of bridging between these domains. That's what I love seeing.
So where do you see that sitting in the global scene? I mean, you know, you know what's going on around the world in terms of makers. Where does Burlington kind of sit in that?
You know, I think it's fun. Of course, I've got the home team kind of glasses on, but whenever I travel to another place, I try to kind of check out their maker scene, and it's usually pretty easy because I do a lot of university speaking, and almost every country in the world that I've been to in the last 5 years has some sort of maker thing going on. But I think Burlington is kind of on the, you know, it's more diverse. It's less geeky. You know, it's got more of a kind of an art meets technology scene, and it also it's more, I don't know, more grounded. I think that there's kind of a homemade culture here in Vermont that goes back 100 years, and you really feel that. So it feels very well established and kind of. It fits here better than in some other places. But it is huge. I mean, it is really, I mean, from Russia to China to Korea, you know, any place out of Morocco, any place you go will have this kind of feel. And it's I would say we're on the leading side of it.
Wow. And all these connections, really cool things
great,
happen. So another really cool sideline niche is your taking technology into schools, into other venues, into TED Talks. Why is working with kids and educating them about technology so important to you?
Oh boy, because I never really grew up, I guess. You know, it's like the best peer group I can find. I think it's really fun to be able to see somebody as excited about something as you are. And sometimes, you know, as adults, we kind of put up this, you know, we're a little jaded, but with a kid, you know, they're just full bore open, and when you show them something that they really like, they're like totally into it, and it amplifies. You know, one of the things that I find is when I'm, you know, overly busy or concerned about stuff, and you walk into a group of kids, and they amplify, you know, they pull your vibe of you know, tech is great, and they bring it back to you. It sort of clears things in my own mind. It reminds me why I'm excited. The other thing that's really interesting, and I know this sounds funny, but some of the, you know, younger, you know, somewhere in like middle school to early high school, kids are very, very open and very, very creative. They often have ideas that adults kind of, you know, have sort of, we become very regimented in our thinking, and that age of kid can be creative in a way that an adult sometimes has trouble getting back to. And so I find it kind of turns that knob back on. Yes, of course. Sure.
Well, actually, and one of those playful things that you did was this rap that we just have to show a little bit of. It's long, don't you think? Let's take a look.
As I walk through my business, I know I owe her the debt. It created my profession and my career's a sure bet. Engineering's my trade and I love my degree. It was that, not my looks, that got my spot on TV. I grew up thinking like my science and math, and you will too if you wanna follow my path. School, now you may be thinking you more gangster than me, but you motherboarders never see my PC. If you be a gamer, you can't give me no lip.
Well, so tell me about, you're really playful with heart. There's this whole thing about
What do you mean?
nerds, about, being so serious all the time.
Well, the funny thing, I think play is essential to invention and to engineering. I mean, we sometimes teach things like science and math in a way of like, getting the right answer, going in the back of the book. But no, working engineer or scientist is actually trying to find an answer to something you already know. So it's often, taking some risks, trying some new stuff, collaborating with other people. And if you think about it, there's a very playful aspect of it. I mean, the biggest part about play is the ability to make mistakes. And sometimes, it was great. IBM was founded by, T.J. Watson Sr. And he said, well, one thing he said is, when things get too serious, I remember I go out and play like I did when I was a kid. And I thought that was really good. But one of the things that he said that is not as quoted as much is that if you want to increase your success rate, you have to double your failure rate. And if you think about it, so when you're playing, you're not like worried about the way it's going to come out. You're not worried about everybody watching you. You're just kind of in it, and you'll make some mistakes. You'll try some stuff. That is absolutely essential to invention.
Okay. Well, I think that I'm about to lose my mind here, but these are fabulous. They're run by your phone.
Looks good on you.
Yeah.
That looks good on you, and
Love
they're actually Internet of Things. They're controlled by my phone and by the cloud. So.
Wow.
It's
Scary
just
again,
a
okay.
cool thing is that there's a big element of play in my work,
Indeed.
which is pretty fun.
Well, one would think that computers and we can.
Yeah, can we? There you are.
Them off. Computers and video games, that play a major part in young people's lives today, that they would be very excited about being a scientist or a technology person, and I guess that's not necessarily that true, or even nerds being on commercial television so much. I mean, it seems that they would be so popular. What's going on?
I would say that is true. That was true for the last, say, 20 years. And it was interesting because I worked on video games. I worked on, am I allowed to say brands? Sure.
Xbox,
Sony, yeah, Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo. I worked on all three of those things, and you would think that everybody would want to know how the insides work. I guess the analogy I would say is, you might like really nice housing, right? You might love a beautiful house and not be particularly interested in the plumbing. Like, oh, well,
Right.
But
is it too hard?
It's not that. It has to be relevant. And I think what's happening, you mentioned, TV is kind of shifting around. You remember back in the Scooby-Doo era, I was a big Velma freak, because she was the nerd, right? And it was always that kid that was sort of socially awkward. But if you watch for the last, I'd say 4 years about, being nerdy is kind of cool, right? And it's front and center. That kind of thing. It's now kind of revered by kids, and it's now they're starting to. I hate to keep bringing up the maker movement, but what is happening is in their schools, instead of shop class, they have these making classes, and they're all starting to think about themselves in a slightly different way. They're thinking about themselves as makers. It's not something somebody else does. It's not something regrettable. It's not like whatever. I remember when I was a kid, it was like square dancing or collecting model railroads, where it was like, you didn't want to talk about it. Now it's hip.
Well, you were actually in 2009 asked to be on a reality TV show called The Colony, which is about surviving a potential Holocaust. So we're going to take a clip of that and a brief premise. So just set us up.
So everyone you know is dead.
Except for
what it was one day I got a call. They said, do you want to be on TV talking about science? I kind of thought Mr. Rogers. Instead, it was a global pandemic, 10 of us in a warehouse, and this is what happened.
Let's take a look.
The Colony is a controlled experiment to see if 10 strangers can rebuild society in the wake of a global catastrophe. The backgrounds and expertise of these 10 volunteers represent a cross-section of modern society. For 10 weeks, they'll be isolated, with no electricity from the grid, no running water, and no communication with the outside world. All they'll have to work with are their skills, the tools and supplies.
What was this like to be on the show?
It was so unexpected. I'm not a TV watcher, but I never had seen, Survivor or Big Brother didn't exist then, and I expected this to be more, upfront science. The first day they kind of threw us into this, made us watch every apocalyptic movie there was, kept us from eating for 36 hours, and I was so disoriented. But over 2 months, it got to be the most fun thing I've ever done.
And you were creating things like crazy out of almost nothing.
Yeah, the reason I agreed to do it is because I knew it would have a science concept, sort of show by doing. But it was hard because we really just had junk. It was an old 1930s steel mill, and they had just filled it with junk. And the whole idea was to try to build your way out. So at first it was like, I don't have the internet, I don't have this, I don't have that. But by the end we were like, yeah, time machine with a walnut and a paperclip, sure. The cool thing about it, Fran, is that everything that we showed on there actually worked.
Wow.
And if it didn't work, they'd show that it didn't work, which was really good because that's the engineering process.
Sure. Everything from water purifiers and
radios
amazing.
and it was like being Professor on Gilligan's Island, my big hero. I got to play him. It was great.
Right now you're dealing with a Smarter Planet initiative, or smart cities. Are you hopeful? Can technology help us overcome this sea of troubles that we seem to find ourselves in?
I think technology is neutral. It's how you use it. And my company has been working on Smarter Planet for 6 years, and it's morphed quite a bit. It's become a lot more pragmatic. The Internet of Things is we talk about it as the Internet of Things, and I believe that technology really can make a difference. I think it has to be you have to kind of have the right mindset. I mean, the kind of things I'm working on now would be like, how do you keep people in their homes longer, for elder care? Can we start monitoring some of their health care issues, heart rates, blood glucose, things like that, without having them to go, into the hospital as much? So those kind of things can make a real big difference. We were talking about automotive stuff, connected cars. It's sooner than you think, but by 2019, we're going to start having semi-automatic cars on highways. Right. And there's all sorts of things. It kind of brings up all what if, but the amount of, it will improve safety immensely. And so I think technology really can help. It's technology attached to a heart. That's what you need. You need to have somebody who has the right goals, and then technology is a great tool.
Right. And indeed, you also seem to have a lot of heart. This nerd thing about it's just all brain is just,
That's such a strange stereotype.
Isn't that strange?
I know so many engineers and scientists around the world, and I would say most of them are, it kind of goes back to the way Hollywood kind of talked about engineers as being sort of one-dimensional, and that's so not true.
Well, we have actually a PBS crew came out to your house, and we can prove how much fun that you had. So, in Making Friends with Ryan Miller, you played with him a little bit. So let's watch that clip about how much fun you can have.
This is Little Abby.
This is awesome.
Not too much interesting. Robot arm.
Tesla ball.
Fire toys. Lots of fire toys.
Those are explosives right there?
Really explosive stuff is in there.
We're just making messy, soapy water.
Okay.
And then we're going to blow something up with it.
Woo, science! We're doing science.
Okay, this will move faster now, I promise.
No, I'm not in no hurry. The best part about this is what you guys would be doing if we weren't here. So I don't feel...
That is actually true.
It's like, oh, just the friendly neighbor comes over with an extra little bit of liquid nitrogen. And, oh, let's go blow something up. Whoa! That was satisfying.
This is family fun for you, clearly.
That was so great. Ryan is such a great nut, and that was amazing. We were sitting there doing the kind of front-up interview thing, and a friend of mine, really did bring back my big container of liquid nitrogen, and it was sort of like, well, of course, let's go blow something up.
Yeah, with that. It seems that, you know, actually when you are on stage with people that you do pyrotechnics or, I mean, you're sure to do an experiment, it seems, when you're in front of anybody.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Sometimes it can be such a great icebreaker, you know, to sort of lighten the... I was at a meeting last year, and let me just say it was a dinner meeting. It was kind of slow, and I'm a vegetarian. Everybody had this beautiful meat thing, and they brought me roasted turnip. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I took my laptop cord, cut it, took 2 forks, and stuck it in the turnip, plugged it in, and the thing started to glow. And you know what? The dynamic of the meeting completely changed. It completely lightened it up. So a little bit of, you know, pocket science is always helpful.
So you have over, what, 65 patents, something like that?
A little more, actually.
Okay. When do you choose a patent and when do you choose open source?
Oh, now that's a great question. It's funny, in my old world of, you know, chip stuff, a lot of the industry relies on patents because there's a lot of investment. It's like drug making or something, where you have a lot of investment, you have to recoup that investment so that you can do the next generation. The funny thing is the more software-oriented stuff that I do now in Internet of Things uses a lot of open source software, and the whole industry grows by people contributing software back in, right? And so I think that there's still a room for patents, but we also contribute very heavily into open source. It's funny because IBM had to go from that notion of everything is ours, you know, it's our idea, to being able to share, and we've been, you know, very active, for example, in things like Linux. And the balance is pretty easy to find. Yeah. You know that when other people can use something, and you kind of have to give back because you're taking as well. It's a wonderful thing.
We've seen some of your fun stuff. You also make big things. You not just chips or, you know, when you were out at Burning Man, there was this Ferris wheel that you made that was kind of amazing. You've also made other things with Homer. Yeah. And Ben Cohen, and you've done a couple of things for and with Ben. But look at this beautiful thing way out in the desert. I think we might have somewhere. It actually runs.
It does.
And people can sit in those chairs. I mean, did, right?
You know, that was the best use of my MIT education was, you know, making something to carry half-naked hippies across the desert. I mean, seriously though, you know, technology, you know, you talk about art for art's sake, I mean, technology for art's sake. That was, you know, I don't know how much you know about Burning Man or any of those festivals, but they bring together so much great technology and music and art. They are really kind of a great sort of beginning for a bunch of trends like these kind of these lights had their you know their real birth out there on the playa, but that device it's actually parked still out near Virgins. You can actually go see it. It's sitting out there rusting, but it was 40 days and such a great collaboration of just, you know, and really Homer's brain, you know, it kind of came out of his fevered imagination. It just bring people together to just out of junk build something that beautiful and get it out there in one piece.
Get it out there and put it back together out there.
And back here, yeah.
So when do aha moments happen for you? And what are they like? When?
You know, that's a great question. I think one of the things is, you know, we have this idea, you know, from movies that, you know, the idea just comes to you, you're sitting there concentrating and the light bulb goes off. More often, you really have to relax. You have to kind of, and when you're staring right at it, it's like, be funny right now. It's really hard, right? So I find running, going for a long run, taking a shower, which is a good thing for an engineer to do occasionally, eating, hanging out with my wife. It's usually when I'm distracted and not thinking about something that something will come to me. I mean, it's amazing. Oftentimes in sleep. You know, oftentimes I will actually work something out in my sleep that's been bugging me. Those are the best ideas, the ideas that kind of come unbidden.
So, you know, you're a very smart guy. So what is like consciousness to you? You know, it's kind of a big question, but, you know, you have an exceptional brain.
I am not programmed to respond to that. I am not programmed to respond to that. I don't know. Yeah. You know, it's funny you ask that because one of the things that we work on a lot is something we call cognitive computing. You know, how close can a computer come to thinking like you or I do? Yeah. And
the whole IT and the...
I am kind of a mechanist, I would call it. I believe that, yeah, I'm a spiritual guy, but I also believe that our thoughts are result of chemical reactions and electrical impulses. And I do think for certain classes of stuff, we are going to build machines that think in that sense. Do they have souls? Do they have spirit? Probably not. But in terms of just the mechanical process of remembering things and making associations, we're going to get pretty close. I mean, when I think about our Watson project, it's very interesting the way that it learns, and you start thinking about it. And if you wanted to start using psychological terms on it, it wouldn't be that it wouldn't be that inappropriate. We're a long ways off, but I believe that we will have that kind of machine intelligence, and I do think that there are real social issues, ethics issues, and stuff that it'll bring up. But I'm more of an optimist, so I think it'll be a real, a good thing.
Well, glad to hear it, John Cohn. Thank you so much for being with us and letting us know that engineers, too, have a lot of fun.
Oh, we do. You have to. It's part of the job description. Thank you very much,
Okay, thanks. And thank you for joining us. Vermont PBS would like to connect with you, too. Feel free to reach out with feedback and ideas at connect@vermontpbs.org. You can also check out other episodes and extra material at the Vermont PBS website. See you next time.